Indonesia, second day Venice, and today we're going to the Basilica, coming in from jolly camping village that looks more like a chalet. They have a supermarket and then they have camping vans and they have swimming pool as well, so it really feels like a chalet, like market place. But the items are not really cheap. Shuttle here, 250 euros per trip and €5 for return trip. Restaurant here. Yeah, I just tried the food yesterday. It was a lot more salty than I expected it, and it's not really cheap. So I'm going over to Venice there to have my breakfast. Taking the bus number 6 to Venice. Just finished my breakfast and we're going to take the Vaporetto. Getting around in Venice is pretty much limited to two modes of transportation. You can either walk or ride a Vaporetto. The Vaporetto is basically a water bus that takes visitors to various destinations in and around Venice. They make stops just like a city bus would, and passengers can come up and go at each stop depending on their destination. The Vaporetto will pass by the four main bridges along the 3.8-kilometer long Grand Canal. The first bridge is the Ponte della Costituzione, which is the newest of the four bridges opened in 2008. There are 22 different lines in the system that take passengers around the Venetian lagoon. The second bridge we shall pass by is the Ponte degli Scalzi, which also means the bridge of the barefoot. In Venice's heyday, anyone of noteworthy or wanted to be noted had to have a palace facing the Grand Canal, and their palazzi can be of any style of architecture, from the 12th to the early 18th century. Next, we pass by one of the oldest bridges along the Grand Canal, the Ponte Rialto. The Grand Canal connects most of Venice's top tourist attractions. In fact, it is the top attraction in itself. Curving in the reverse S to the heart of the city, it is also Venice's main street, allowing traffic from gondolas to barges carrying produce to the market. So one gondola is about, the real ones is about 400,000, and the replica is basically about half the price, is about 20,000 euros. The last bridge that we are passing by is the Ponte dell'Accademia. This bridge gets its name from the Accademia galleries close by. It was first constructed in 1850s and is also the bridge where the famous iconic shot of the Grand Canal is taken. I alighted the Vaporetto just after the Ponte dell'Accademia bridge. Next, I visited the Venice Music Museum. It is a museum located in a former church known as St. Maurizio. Most of the estimated 150 instruments are from the 16th to the 19th century. Among them are 40 violins, 20 violas, some cellos, as well as double bass. There is also a small exhibition area in the museum about some famous composers like Antonio Vivaldi. Vivaldi was born in Venice in 1678 and was one of the most important composers during the Baroque period. There is also a small shop in the museum selling CDs, DVDs, as well as books focusing on classical music. Gondolas were once regularly used by Venetians, especially for the upper class. The gondolas plying the busy Grand Canal and smaller waterways of Venice are one of the most iconic images in the world. They are the symbol of history, tradition, and romance in the city on the lagoon. For centuries, Venice was the epic center of a trading empire specializing in the world's finest goods. The legacy flourishes into a shopping culture today. Boutiques of Italy's most luxurious brands and family-owned shops lined the cobblestone streets. Venice offers one of the most rewarding shopping experiences one can ever have. After dropping off my bag at the luggage storage, I headed straight to the St. Mark's Basilica. The queue was long, but the luggage ticket helped me to skip the queue because there's a limited duration I can leave my bag in the luggage storage. So, they let me in first. Some interesting facts about the Basilica. The first St. Mark's Basilica was built on this spot in the 9th century to house some very sacred relics that has been stolen. In the 828, merchants from Venice stole the body of St. Mark, the evangelist, one of the 4 apostles, from Alexandria, Egypt. According to the legend, they snuck them past the Muslim guards by hiding the body under the layers of pork in the barrels. There are also more than 85,000 square feet of mosaic in St. Mark's Basilica. These mosaics were done over 8 centuries, mostly in gold, resulting in an astonishing golden reflection inside the basilica. Another example of the sheer size of the basilica is the number of columns. There are more than 500 columns and capitals in the basilica, mostly of Byzantine style dating from the 6th to the 11th centuries. Next, I visited Museum Coral. The collection of paintings, sculptures, antiques, and navigation instruments in the Museum Coral were bequeathed to the city of Venice in 1830 by Teodoro Coral. As a member of a traditional Venetian family, he was a meticulous and passionate collector, dedicating most of his life to the collection of artwork, documents, and individual objects that reflected the history of Venice. Upon his death, all his collections were donated to the city, together with the family's Grand Canal Palace, which was then used to house it. Noblemen also left the city funds to be used in conserving and extending the collections and in making them available to the public. Next, I visited the Doge's Palace. The Doge's Palace was once an important political building in Venice. Formerly a residence and the seat of Venetian government, the palace is a symbol of Venice. It is one of the most prominent landmarks in the city of Venice. The palace was built in 1340s to show off the wealth and power of the Republic. A masterpiece of Gothic architecture, the Doge's Palace is an impressive structure composed of layers of buildings, elements and ornamentation. From its 14th and the 15th century original foundations to the significant Renaissance and opulent Mannerist adjunction. The Doge's Palace was not only the Doge's apartment, the government, and the city's courtroom, but it was also a jail. New prisons were constructed in the 16th century. An enclosed bridge called the Bridge of Sighs connects the interrogation room in the palace to the prisons. From here, prisoners would glimpse their last sight of the cities and freedom before reaching the prison, hence the name Bridge of Sighs. The Doge's Palace was where justice was administered. It wasn't difficult to end up in jail in Venice. At times, a single anonymous accusation was enough to be arrested. Perhaps the most famous prisoner here was Giacomo Casanova. Casanova was a legendary seducer, a scholar, actor, and for a short period of time, even an abbot. He was 29 when he was in prison here, and by the time, he had already traveled the whole world. The palace prisons was famous for being difficult to escape. However, Casanova managed to demonstrate the contrary. Casanova escaped on the night 31st October 1756. Digging up the wooden planks with a makeshift tool, he climbed out of his cell onto the roof and then down to the Arctic. Crossing the whole palace, he reached the Golden Staircase, where he was seen by a guard who mistook him for a politician who had been locked in and let him out. A legend says that he even stopped for coffee in San Marco Square before fleeing by sea on a gondola. It was only after his escape that his destiny turned into fame and riches. It's a busy place, yes. This is behind Basilica. And we're gonna grab some food over here. Looks good. I don't know what. In the evening, I headed to St. Mark's Campanile. St. Mark's Campanile is the bell tower of St. Mark's Basilica in Venice. Luckily for me, this evening was not crowded and I make my way up to the bell tower quickly. From the top of the bell tower, you get an amazing view of the city and especially picturesque during the sunset. The bell tower is an imposing square-planned tower about 99 meters high, crowned by a spire that was once used as a lighthouse for shipping. It was first built in the 12th century on site as a watchtower and rebuilt in the 16th century with the addition of a belfry. After striking of the bell, the city went back to enjoy the serenity of the evening. This will be my last night